All right, so got the Powermatic planer here, and I'm doing a little video on this because there isn't a lot of information on this particular one. I'm replacing a 12-inch DeWalt. It's spinning around the shop over there, and you can see it sitting right there, and that's going to be retired. I did my shopping for a planer. I narrowed my search down to 3 basic planers. They were all 15-inch helical head. Obviously the one I'm replacing was the first generation DeWalt. I believe it's a 733 2-knife cutter, and it planed a lot of wood for me. Obviously those of you who have had those know that you've been sanding out your snipe, or however you get rid of that, but that planer, sometimes you get a nice clean board through it, a nice clean run through it. Sometimes it's a 50-50 shot, and not too bad a planer for a beginner, but as you get more serious, you really need to upgrade your tool probably. And so, like I say, I looked at the 3 different ones. One was this Powermatic. This is a Powermatic 15-inch helical head, and the other one I looked at was the Jet 15-inch helical head, and then the Grizzly. This one was definitely more expensive. The Jet was a middle price, and then the Grizzly was just slightly less than the Jet. But the more I looked at things, one of the things I really thought I might want was a 5-row helical head. This was the only one that had the 5-row helical head, and it had more cutter heads. There's not a lot out there about how this thing performs. And I thought, well, I'm rolling the dice just a tad. Obviously Powermatic has a great name in the woodworking side of things, and just got it today. It's I don't know, almost 600 pounds. So if you're going to get one, you got to think about how you're going to be able to take it off of a truck and get it into your building. Fortunately, I have the means to do that. But anyway, that was my big deciding factor, was the 5-row helical head with more cutter heads. So I thought, and I've never owned anything Powermatic. This is my first Powermatic piece of equipment. If it goes well, maybe I'll look at some more in the future as needs arise. But for right now, I thought, well, I'll just give it a try. It's not all that much more. I happened to catch it on a 10% off sale. So I think it was like $3,200, and that brought it down to like $2,800 and some dollars, $2,850, something like that. And so I looked around on the internet, and I found a place that I could get it with some free shipping. So that saves some more money there. So to the door here, was like $2,800 and some dollars, almost $2,900. So it's still very expensive. There's no doubt about it. So I will give a shout out. I bought it bought it online through I think it's called Cling Sports out of North Carolina. I might be getting their name wrong, but I think it's Cling Sport or Cling Sport, something like that. When I ordered it, they actually called me to verify that I ordered it, and I thought that was really an incredible move on their part, because with all the credit card fraud and stuff today, and you're talking almost $3,000. I thought it was a class act of them to call me and say, hey, are you actually the guy who ordered this? And of course I was. And they said, okay, well, we're just checking to make sure. And I thought that was a real conscientious, classy move on their part, to make sure. So start getting it unboxed, see what happens. We'll speed up the tape, get this thing out. I will say, unfortunately, you can't see this right now, but I'm kind of rearranging my shop on some things right now. And where I think I'm going to end up putting this, there's a huge pile of wood over here. And so that's going to have to get moved. And then I've kind of got my, well, you can see it right there. My miter saw station kind of set up there and stuff. And I think I'm going to end up moving all that over out and putting my, you can also see my jet joiner sitting back there. I think that's going to end up over here and stuff. So right now, once I get this thing, get the outer shell off of this, it's going to have to set for a while until I can get some of this logistics worked out. Fortunately, I don't need to plane any wood because I really don't want to use that DeWalt anymore. And I'm hoping this gives me, you know, obviously a much better finish, and I'll have that towards the end of the video, how things worked out. But anyway, we're going to get unboxing this thing, see what it looks like. All right, I got the top off here. One thing I forgot to mention there, and when I was in the beginning here, was when you have a shipment like this show up, you really should do an inspection on it to check for damage, because R&L Carriers is the one who brought this to me, and it was in good shape. There's nothing wrong with it. I made that determination based on the fact that the likelihood of the wrong piece of equipment being in here, and let's see if I can get you this. It's got this on the side of it. You know, I pretty much knew it was going to be the right piece of equipment and stuff. So I wasn't too worried about it. You can see it right there, 15-inch planer. So I wasn't too much worried about it being the wrong piece of equipment as much as it having damage. But I took a look around the box, out here, and it didn't have not one scratch on it. In fact, even down there on the pallet portion of the box, it was in perfect condition. So, you know, good on R&L Carriers there for doing a nice job of transporting. So I kind of rolled the dice a little bit that nothing was wrong with it. I signed for it, because once you sign for it, it's yours. If there's something wrong with it, it makes it a lot harder to recoup your loss, okay, so to speak. So I do want to point that out. Check your stuff. All right. It is a 15-inch planer. All right, so right now I got it all unboxed, and I'm leaving it on the pallet. I think it'll be easier to transition it off this dolly down here, so I can move it close to where I want and then just ease it off the dolly that way. Really not going to be able to do too much with it at this point, like I say, until I get some of these logistics in the shop worked out. But one of the things I was after is the instruction manual, and when I got some idle time, I can at least look through that instruction manual and start figuring this out. One thing I didn't say in there earlier, or maybe if I did I forgot, if you do have some shipping damage, You want to reject the shipment. Get a hold of either the carrier, work it out with them, or the place who shipped it. Get a hold of them, let them know that you have damage to the equipment, and work it. But whatever you do, don't sign and take it, because once you sign and take it, like I said, it's really makes things much almost impossible to recoup that. It certainly makes things a lot more difficult. It's a lot easier to just say, I'm not going to sign for it, I'm going to reject it because it's got damage. Take some pictures, take lots of documentation pictures and stuff and handle it. But ultimately, probably more than my word, each carrier could be different, so make sure you know what you're dealing with and check with them. But anyway, just a word to the wise, don't just, take it. But anyway, I'll get this instruction manual, find out which box it's in, and then at least I can review it a little bit, kind of figure out once I'm able to get it to its point, then I'm going to be able to go to 10 on it and get it going. But really look forward to it. This, like I say, this is my first piece of Powermatic. I got a lot of my hand tools are Bosch. You've probably seen when I take those off, Makita. I don't buy brand, I buy what I like. So I have a lot of my bigger tools are Jet, Grizzly. This is my first Powermatic, so we'll see how it goes. Future tools, the Grizzly's been good, the Jet's been good. We'll see how this Powermatic does. But nonetheless, look forward to it. So just hang in there with me on this video, and we'll get to the next part of trying to get this thing set up. Try to go through the challenges or the successes I had with the setup, and then ultimately run. I got a big, nice pile down here. I just got the other day of hickory, cherry, walnut, and maple. And I think there's even some white oak or ash in there too. I can't remember which. But anyway, we'll run these boards through it. Obviously, I'm really interested to see how it does on the hickory, because that's the hardest of those woods. And seeing how it does where, I mean, even my little DeWalt, it would plane the hickory. I just never put a real super wide piece in there. I try to keep it below about 6 inches. I rarely work with wood that's over 6 inches. When it's wood, obviously plywood much more, but regular wood I don't really do that a lot. But on this guy here, well, that's not true. If you run a cutting board or something through it, I usually made it right at 12 inches where I have to go through there. And that DeWalt one, it did it. It didn't like it, but it did it. And this one being a helical head, 15-inch, with a much bigger motor and stuff, I'm looking forward to running some of my cutting boards and other pieces through it and seeing how it does. And I'm obviously hoping with all the money that it did cost to improve that situation. So, all right, well, hang in there. We'll get to the next phase here.
I do have the planer unboxed now, obviously. I'm not going to belabor that too much. I will say Powermatic, whoever does this machine for them, they do a lot of packaging. It's in there pretty good, so it does take a little bit of time to get the planer off of it. And then again, this unit weighs nearly 600 pounds. You want to be very careful maneuvering this around and making sure you have it braced so that either it doesn't fall over, or worse yet, fall or lean or tip or something on someone, because it could definitely hurt them. In the instructions here, one of the first things they have you do is to clean it. Okay, so down here it says exposed surfaces such as the tables, rollers, cutter heads, etc. have been given a protective coating at the factory. This should be removed with a soft cloth. So I have here these cloths that you can buy. They're like typically used for waxing cars and things like that. They're real soft, and that's what I'm going to use. And so it says removed with a soft cloth, moistened with a good commercial solvent. So, what is a good commercial solvent? So I called Powermatic down in Tennessee, and the tech guy said, well, you know, there's a number of things you could use. Some of these things I never even heard of. But, you know, for us common people that have access to, you know, more mainstream type products, WD-40 comes up a lot. And I'm not, I usually don't use WD-40 because I found over the years when you try to stop a squeak with it, a lot of times it gums up, you know, a hinge or whatever you sprayed it in. So I'm not been as apt to keep a can of that around, so I've kind of lost touch with WD-40. But the guy from Powermatic said, well, actually, WD-40 does a great job of cleaning. Okay. So I went down to Home Depot, and here's what I actually ended up buying. It's a little bit, not the common thing at WD-40. I'm going to get it right up here where you can see it real good. And that's what I'm going to use on a soft cloth, okay? So if you need to degrease these, this is, you know, I'll let you know how this works. It also says back here in instructions, do not use, okay, do not use acetone, gasoline, lacquer thinner, or other solvents with a low flash point. Now, when I had this up here, you might have noticed that this has a high flash point, okay? So, along with multi-surface, low fumes, no residue, probably gonna work pretty well, I would guess, on here. Now, this is a helical head cutter, okay? So it doesn't have the typical long knives that many of the, you know, these planers that they have. So, you know, I'm gonna caution you when you come down in here, these little square cutters are extremely sharp, as are the long blades. So you might wanna wear some gloves or protective. I'm just saying out there, just something to think about. Just be careful in here. As you can see, you know, I am obviously unplugged, okay? If you have it hardwired in a different way, shut the breaker off, okay? And make sure that this thing is off. Now I've removed the cover off of this so I can access my cutter head. And I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna clean this up real good. And then obviously, you know, down here, they have this, this cellophane-like clear plastic over it to protect it, and I'm going to spray it, get it real clean. Now, another thing I thought about using, and probably many of you in woodworking are used to these. There you go. And I decided to get, they might work, I don't know. But I've used these before, and I don't know how they would work with the oils. It would probably work fine. I really don't know though. Okay, I'm not even going to try it. So I do use that on my pieces around here. Sometimes they get a little bit of rust. I live in the Midwest, so it's, you know, it's high humidity throughout the year. So I do sometimes develop a little surface rust on there. And anyway, so that's where it's going. So I'm going to get to town, cleaning this thing up. Okay, so I spent about probably close to 45 minutes cleaning, and in the end, I think the WD-40 product that I used worked pretty well. I ended up trying some of the Bow Shield Once again, that's the T9 bow shield, the Boeing product. It's a lot more expensive than the WD-40, and I didn't really see how it worked better. I think I would wait till maybe, you know, some years down the road, hopefully never, but nonetheless, when you know, some of these surfaces down here may form a little bit of surface rust, and use that. That's primarily what it was designed for anyway. Anyway, the WD-40 seemed to work pretty well. Got things clean, but I noticed at the end it still had a little bit of a film on it. So you might try 2 treatments. I ended up taking a old cotton t-shirt and kind of buffing, and that seemed to get it to an acceptable point for me. Now, one thing I do want to add in there, the cutter head in here, the helical cutter head, I was very careful, and I still got 2 small cuts. And so, you know, I just can't emphasize enough being really careful around that cutter head. I was really almost regretting getting this when I was going around that, because 5 rows of cutter heads take a while to go around and very difficult to clean. But nonetheless, you know, take your time, be persistent, and eventually you make it around there. But like I said in the beginning, I bought this because of the 5 rows of cutter heads. And so anyway, so I got through that. I did not wear a pair of gloves. What I did is I took my cloth, protected my hand like this, and rotated the cutter head while I took this one and wiped it all out. Probably should have wore a pair of gloves, but I found, you know, that it was really hard to get in there with additional things on my hands. So I just went real slow and did my best. So just exercise extreme caution around these cutters heads, and make sure it is unplugged, depowered, so that, you know, while your hands are in there, nothing bad happens. So that's my spiel on the cleaning of the cutter heads. And so next I'm going to move on. You can see that the hand wheel's already on. It's just one simple screw in there. I'm not going to spend any time on that. I'm going to go to the electrical box next, which is in the instructions. Okay, this is the control box for the planer, and in the instructions it has 2 bolts. They're already installed here. They're 5mm. Powermatic does give you the wrench to use on it, and I'm just going to unscrew these and put this in. Now, there's no coating on these. This is going to be vibration. You might, you know, use your discretion on thread lock, whether you want to put that on or not. So just some food for thought there. If you were going to use thread lock to help keep these in and protect against vibration, I would use a blue and not a red. Red's for high temperature applications. It will lock in a little better, and you know, eventually you may have to replace this, and so the reds can be hard to get out. They usually do come out, I'll just say that, but the blue should hold it just fine. In another hobby of mine, we use blue on very high vibration areas, and we've had great success with it. So I'll probably just a little speck of blue on these just to help keep them in place. Hey, we just got this all finished up, and next the instructions will have you move on to putting these extension tables on. So this is the extension table right here, and you'll notice that there's 6 holes in these. These upper holes are over drilled and there's a bolt that they supply will go to that, and they're going to go in here, and then the lower hole is going to accept a set screw that will press against this to help hold it in position. Okay, so it works the same on both sides. They do not designate a in-feed extension table and an out-feed extension table. Looking at the two, I don't see a difference. So, and they don't note that, so obviously it doesn't matter. These are a little heavy. You might want to have somebody help you, but nonetheless, you got to get them set at this height here. So Powermatic suggests, well, just put a straight edge on here and make sure that straight edge is a true straight edge. Okay, not all straight edges, if you don't know that by now, they're not all true. Okay, so I hate to say we got some liars out there, but you know, make sure it's a true straight edge, because you don't want to be in feeding a board and have the outfeed extension table up just a touch where it will, you know, jump the board or stop the board for a second, and that's going to give you a snipe. Absolutely. I know a few guys that even take their outfeed table and they'll take it down just, you know, 1/100 of an inch, or, you know, 5/1000 of an inch, whatever, you know. So you can do that. Problem with the straight edges, you have these rollers down here. They're up, they're elevated just a little bit, and they're going to make your straight edge inaccurate. So you can, Powermatic tells you how to lower those, or I got a rotator. Rotocators are special made measuring devices for planers. Now they'll work on other things. You can use them on your table saw and stuff too. The one I happen to have is this one. All right, it's a wood stock. You can buy them on the Grizzly website. I think they were $149. I found this one on Amazon for 99 bucks. And Woodstock International is Shop Fox, if I understand that correctly. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But anyway, so I put this on here, and it's a pretty heavy little tool with some pretty strong magnets here in the bottom to keep it right in place. Now, when I got this out, I just got it and I didn't really pay attention. And the bottom had a protective coating on it. When I set it on here, it got a bunch of smudges on here. Now you can see this is all nice and clean. And I'll tell you, I'm going to go back and say that I think this stuff works okay. I really do. I wouldn't have a problem with using it again. It seems to clean real good. Again, anytime you put the stuff on there, I think in the end, you still, you know, there might be a slight film. It only gets so good, maybe. That'll dry in some time too. First time I used it, so hard to say. But a rotator is a great little tool, very accurate. I've already went through the instructions here on to use it for this, because through this I'm going to use this to make sure my rollers are right, make sure my cutter head is right. So I mean, yeah, it's almost like a one-trick pony at 99 bucks, but nonetheless, you know, you gotta. I like to plane a lot of boards. I don't have a power sander, or a drum sander rather, and so I'm relying on this guy to get me very close to a finish that will require minimal sanding, and I need to have it exactly right in order for that to happen. So if it's not adjusted right, it's gonna make things inaccurate and cause more work. Okay, so what did we do here? They give you this bag right here. All right, and within that bag are these bolts. And again, the out feed is the same as the in feed. So in that bag are your set screws, okay? Set screws and the bolt, okay? So we're gonna use these bolts first. I'm going to opt again to use a little bit of blue thread lock, and I usually just put the blue thread lock on there pretty generously and then just slide the other bolt around it, and that gets me two of them ready to go. And we'll get this guy on here. I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you, first of all, if I run this along here, it's pretty true along that edge here. Obviously from there to there, I didn't expect any. If you move it up to here, and I've got this set just barely where this is on the high side of 0, and if I take my nail, I can barely even feel a catch. And as I run it across here, there's a little bit low right there, and it's almost spot on. Okay, so that's the truth detector right there. So you know, kudos to Powermatic on making sure these are you know, ground down, you know, and to a finished product that's very true. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to blue thread lock those set screws. I'm going to get those in nice and tight. I'm going to run this across one more time to make sure those set screws don't change anything, even though the 3 bolts along the bottom, I have it very, very tight with blue thread lock. And but I want to make sure, absolutely positively sure, that this table does not get out of whack as I put in those set screws. So as you see on the rotator here, once I go back across through here, it's got very, very little movement to that needle. Okay, right, I'm just right on that line, and it's just not really moving much. And I have the base on this part back here and the indicator part on this part, so that is really, really good once again. So all right, so I'll do the same to the back. Okay, I got the extension outfeed part on here, and so I'm going to summarize just real quickly what I ended up doing on that. Was on the infeed table, I ended up going with 3/1000ths of an inch higher as it hits this center section here, and then the outfeed table was 3/1000ths of an inch lower, which I'll just tell you, if you run your fingernail on it, you can barely feel the height difference. But you know, if you don't have a rotator, the fingernail works great. A single edge razor blade, you know, move it in both directions. If you don't have a good straight edge, those are some ways to tell you. And I can tell you, after playing around with a little bit, you'll get a feel for, you know, where these extension tables need to be. They're not, I mean, they're not super critical. They have to be out a little ways to really give you a problem, but I'm just going for exact as I can be right now. Okay. So also I did run the rotator on the back here, and again, Powermatic did a real nice job. It wasn't really, I think, plus or minus 1 or 2/1000ths of an inch out. So I mean, it's really, really, really good in my opinion. Next in the directions are to install the dust hood. Now I am running a dust collection system. Right here behind me is actually the pickup for it with a gate, and that is going to be my dust collection Powermatic says if you do not run dust collection, which highly recommended obviously, because if you never had one of these, if you've never had a planer, the amount of dust and shavings that come out of this are going to be mind-boggling, and you will need to somehow capture those, or you are really going to be breathing a lot of bad stuff. So highly recommend the dust collection in some form. You know, if you don't, I know when I had a portable planer, this is a severe upgrade from what I had. I had a DeWalt, first generation DeWalt 12-inch planer, and it actually wasn't too bad. You know, I mean, yes, it did snipe boards a fair amount, but you know, you learn to work with it and stuff. Obviously, I'm expecting far better performance out of this and stuff. So I used to plane my boards outside, okay, so I wasn't breathing that dust. Obviously, at almost 600 pounds, we're not going to be rolling this inside and out. This is going to be inside, and it really needs dust collection. So this is what we're going to do. There's a flange on the bottom here, as you can see. That's going to go on these down here. The top here, these surface flush-mounted bolts, they're going to go onto this, and they're going to go inside. It does not go on the outside. It's impossible to do that. So they're going to go on the inside. And then there is one package of bolts that Powermatic has, and Powermatic did a good job with packaging the bolts. Okay, so when you run the extension tables, all those bolts are in one package. The dust hood, all those bolts are in one package. So it's really hard to get them, you know, in the wrong spot, or use them in the wrong place. For one, some of them are the same size, but anyway, my point being is, don't open the packages until you're ready to do that particular operation, and it's really almost foolproof. Okay, so we're going to mount this up and come back with the next part of it. Okay, so the dust hood is now in, and I will say these top bolts, the metal that they screw down into, it's not super thick, so you don't want to, you know, really honk down on them too much. Now these ones underneath, they go into some pretty solid stuff, so absolutely I'd tighten those. Now one thing I will say, I didn't mention at the beginning of this, but I will say, you might want to just finger thread these in, don't tighten them down yet, and go ahead and get your top ones fingered in, get your bottom ones fingered in, but so that you can get the right adjustment on it. And then when it's right, I did the bottom ones first and then came back and got the top ones. So that kind of seemed to work pretty well, but nonetheless, this is in now, and we're going to move on to some of the other things that they talk about with the planer next, including the electrical hookup. Okay, as I said, we're going to talk now some about the electrical, and if you follow Powermatic's directions, they're going to recommend that you get an electrician to wire this circuit for you. I'm not going to touch on that. I am not an electrician. I have done some wiring, and I am going to wire this one myself as allowed by my local code. I can do that. You may not be able to do that in your area. I found if you call your building inspector, and usually they're helpful. Mine is local. They'll answer questions like that. So consult on that. One thing I will say is you're going to need a 220 circuit. This plug comes just wires. I already have a plug I bought, and this is the receptacle that I'm going to use. And I'm going to make a outlet come out right here on my wall. And this cord, not real long. It's probably in the neighborhood of about 5 or 6 feet. And so I do have a little bit of movement with this. You know, if I need to move it for a board or something, you know, you can feed a 8 or 10 foot board through this. Obviously, you can feed longer. I mean, you know, as long as it's over 15 inches wide. But some things to consider like that, because I don't recommend using extension cords. In fact, they have some recommendations right here for, you know, what you might be doing in regards to length and stuff like that. So when in doubt, I would really consult a licensed electrician, and I'll leave it at that. But I wanted to throw a couple considerations out on where you might place it. On me, I have pretty good in feed and out feed areas. I have about 8-10 feet on each side, so I'm going to live with that, and I think that'll serve me probably 99 times out of 100. Moving on, the next thing they talk about is belt tensions. Okay, so I'm going to readjust the camera here, and we're going to take a look at this belt tension over here. Okay, I went ahead and removed the cover. Powermatic's made that very easy. This is the way it looks, and it just has these 2 thread knobs on there that come off very easily, and you have access to your belts here. This is a 3-belt system, which is real nice. You know, if you blow one, you can run the rest of the day, get one, replace it, and then you're not down for a day, which is nice. Probably, you know, you wouldn't want to run that way all the time. You know, keep all 3 belts on there, obviously. But anyway, they talk about the tension now. Powermatic does not give any recommendations on the amount of tension this should have. Basically, what they say is this push, and as long as you're not getting too much flex. Now, I'm going to tell you, you know, and feel free to comment on this if you feel like, you know, you got more direction on this. But I always felt like, you know, if I got to start, you know, using more than just my fingers, then and I'm not moving it very far. Now, obviously, if I move this over and I touch the other belt, or I could squeeze these belts together, which I'm almost squeezing as hard as I can, and I cannot get the belts together. I could if I went my full strength, but I got a pretty good grip. So yeah, I could touch them together, but they're probably, I'm just guessing that Powermatic may have these set at some point to get them tensioned right. But I'm pushing right now, and I'm not moving too far. So I'm just going to give a rough gauge on what I'm looking at for my setup. Obviously, if anybody's got some recommendations from Powermatic that they've been told, there's none in the manual. I'm just putting this ruler up here, and I'm able to put my finger backwards, and without, because that's where your weak point is, and if I can adjust that and hold my finger, I can only get not quite 1 centimeter, which is right at a ½ inch area. So to me, I think that's pretty good. Now I'm going to swing the camera around here in just a second, and I'm going to show you if you are not happy with your tension, then how to fix that. The other thing is over tensioning. Okay, is also not a good thing. So if you are able to play Stairway to Heaven on these because they're that tight, okay, back those off a little bit. That's too tight. There should be a little bit of movement here. Okay, and like I say, a backwards finger is usually pretty good on this side. I can't really squeeze them together without no pressure, but you know, a backwards finger where you have least strength, I'm able to move it, maybe not quite a centimeter, maybe not quite, which is, you know, right in the neighborhood of a ½ inch. I'm pretty happy with that for this distance, so I'm going to live with that. But the other thing is too is, are these pulleys straight? Now, this is a straight edge here. I've checked it. I use it in my shop pretty regularly. It's pretty reliable, and I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. And what I found was that this bottom pulley, I'm going to bring my camera down just a shade more here for you, is the bottom pulley here. Okay, when I put it on there, I am real nice and flush on the top. I am out just slightly on the top of this pulley. Okay, so what I'm thinking I need to do is to move this motor, I would need to move it in just a little bit to get this to get it where I would want it. Okay, and you have to go inside the machine here. So when I show you where to belt tension it, I'm going to show you the bolts that you can move this on. Now, I'm out so little, I can barely see any light through there. Really, it's probably not even worth moving, but I may go ahead and do that. I'm going to contemplate that here in just a little bit, but I still will show you where those adjustments are. Okay? All right, so there's this panel here. Grab it. It has these vents here, and it's got 4 Phillips head bolts, and it just bolts up there real easy. So I went ahead and took those out. And to access, and this is on the outfeed side of the planer. And in here, I'm going to bring this thing in real tight here, and give you a good look at what I'm looking at on this. And here is the bolt right here. Okay, this guy right here will give you the up and down on the motor to tension your belt. Pretty easy to get to. Okay, this bolt here, and let me get some more light in here. This other bolt over here, right here, and this bolt right here. Those are 2 of the 4 you have to loosen, and then you can slide the motor left or right to get that pulley in or out. Now, let me bring the camera back out and show you. At my size, I'm going to have a hard time accessing those bolts in the front. So, because they're on this side of the motor way back here, and there's no other openings. Powermatic did not put any more access panels for you to do those front bolts. So the options would be to kind of either reach around and kind of do it in the blind, which I'm not a big fan of, or tilt the machine back, and so you can get underneath, you know, through the bottom hole there to access those bolts, get your pulley in and out. So now I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to look at this, you know, these pulleys a little bit more and see if I want to live with just the slight amount of misadjustment that I have, or if I'm going to tilt this machine over, and I don't like doing that at 600 pounds. So that's decision time on my part. But this is, you know, it's you know, I would recommend a Powermatic. I really like what I'm seeing on this machine. But you know, that is something that is probably a one-time adjustment. Mine is slightly out, and you know, maybe they don't put that in there because it usually is kind of a rare adjustment. Once it's adjustment, it's not likely to move again, although obviously it could. But the access to those front bolts is really rough. So I've even tried to fit through this, and I just, my shoulders are just too wide to get through it. I'm 6'2" and 220 pounds. So, you know, I'm a fair sized guy, but I'm not obese at the same time either. So, you know, food for thought on that, you know, how precise you want it to be. So I think I'm going to take a break here and figure this out, and we'll come back to it. But anyway, that's how you're going to adjust your belt tension. That's how you're going to adjust your pulley alignment. And the belt tension's real easy to get to. It's a nice open panel, you know, a flashlight, and you're good to go. So that's no big deal. So come back and pick it up from there. Okay, so what I ended up doing was thinking, well, I went this far, why stop now? So I tilted my machine over, put it on a reliable place to stabilize it while it's tilted over. And I went with this configuration because now it allows me to access from the bottom, and I can bring it over here and go through the access hole for the other two bolts, and I can get it on both sides. And I think I can knock this out pretty quick. So once I gave it a little thought, this is what I came up with to be safe. I do have you know, a safety person with me, and so I would highly recommend that. But you know, I don't want to tell you what to do. You're going to go into something like this. Use good judgment. This is a 600-pound machine, right at 600 pounds anyway, and you know, this thing. It's dangerous, okay? It's unplugged, obviously, and I'm going to slide this motor over. So we're going to change camera positions here and get it to an area that you can follow along here. All right, everybody. Hey, we're underneath the machine right now. I got these two bolts here. I'm going to loosen up, and actually, now that I'm under here, I realize I can actually don't even need to go to the other side. I can actually access the other side of these just as easy. So I'm going to loosen these up, and we're going to slide this motor, recheck our pulleys, and once it's all good, tighten them up. Done deal. All right, so I have the motor totally loose. You can see I can move it in and out here, and so I'm going to go back and move it till I get it. Okay, after moving the motor into several positions, I've discovered it's not going to get totally perfect. There is going to be just a slight. I get flush up here and down on this lower one. It's flush on the bottom and just a small gap on the top, and that's the best I can get it. So I'm going to leave that. So in hindsight, that's where it was. So it's probably factory set. I don't know that for sure. I don't have any confirmation on that. So I would say if you are very, very close, you might just want to leave it. The other thing I looked at was the distance between the belts and the back cover plate here on the top and bottom, and I'm extremely close on those. I'm going to actually measure them, but just eyeballing it, you know, I'm pretty close. And I'm going to go ahead and turn these, you know, and they don't seem to be warped, you know, out one way or another. Like their, you know, track on them seems to be pretty good. I'm gonna look at it a little bit more. So you seen the bolts down there that I loosened. I'm gonna go back in there, tighten those up, check my belt tension once again. Powermatic recommends, and obviously if you run belt-driven motors, new belts do stretch some. So you may have to go back in and tighten it, but I showed you where that bolt is. Very easy to get with just removing the access panel here. So anyway, I'm going to wrap that up for this this portion on this, and we're going to move on down. And we're just getting really close to running some wood through it here. Looking forward to that part. Okay, the next part of the manual on the helical head planer talks about adjusting your rollers down here. Okay, Powermatic does factory set those. If you need to set, they set it for what they call average planing, and you know that's probably fits me pretty good. But anyway, let's take a look at it. So here, I'm going to bring the camera in just a tad more, and I'm going to show you what we're looking at here, and hopefully we can get a real nice shot about what I want to see in this area right here. Okay, and so anyway, I'm coming in here to this. You see this feed roller right here? Okay, you may see I've already got my rotator in here to check it, but there's a set screw right here that you loosen, and then this right here is your adjustment up and down. Okay, and there's 4 of those on the machine. The other one's right here. Okay, so like I say, you just loosen that set screw, and then this right here with your 3mm provided hex wrench will adjust your feed, or not your feed roller, but your bottom rollers. Okay, so I have went ahead and I'm going to take a look on the rotator here, and I found that I was 1/1000th of an inch out left to right. Now, I'm not going to worry about 1/1000th of an inch. Some might. I'm not going to worry about it. But I will put the camera in there and show you how I did this to figure that out. You see I got my rotator here, and what I found was Powermatic is suggesting 0 to 0.006 of an inch up or down for your adjustment, and I am we're at 0.004 here, and when I get over here I was 0.005. Okay, so what I did was I took my rotator. I haven't checked this one yet. I've only checked this one, but obviously the process for it will be exactly the same. I took my rotator and I got it zeroed out, and then I just took it and I ran it up here, and I seen that where it was going there. Okay, and I just ran it back across so I knew where the high point was, and then I run it down a little bit more, and I ran it across there and there, and then over here is where I found. So that tells me 2 things. Really, I can check it on the left and the right side of the machine, and that would get me, you know, exactly parallel with the surface. Okay, but I checked it in here because I just wanted to see how true this roller was, and it was in really good shape. So anyway, I'm going to leave it alone. I'm happy with 1/1000th of an inch, and I'm going to check that one in the same manner. So that will cover the table rollers, and next we're going to be looking at some cutter head stuff. So that's coming up next. If you did follow my last portion when I was covering the movement of the motor to adjust the motor in or out on the the belts to get the pulleys to align. The manual may have a mistake in it. It said back here that those bolts on that motor were 12 millimeter and they were actually 13 millimeter. So anyway, I wanted to point that out to you too. So we're going to come back with the cutter heads. Okay, we're looking at the next step in the manual, and it's going to talk about cutter head replacement and height adjustment. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take the manual here, and this side over here is for knife, and then this side over here is for helical head. Okay, helical head is absolutely a lot different than the typical knives that you have in the more I'll say earlier model or mainstream style planers, or maybe the lesser expensive planers. And then now these are gaining a lot more popularity. They're not really new. They've been out for a number of years, but nonetheless, they're making it down into more the weekend shop guys. So I'm going to bring in the camera in here and show you what we're looking at, and talk a little bit about what Powermatic has decided to do. One, they do give you this tool. It is a 1/4 inch drive screwdriver with a 1/4 inch socket, T25 plus. Okay, that's what they want you to use, a T25 plus. And I'm going to bring my camera down here a little bit more for y'all, and I'm going to really focus in on these helical head cutters, and we're going to take a look at those right now. So anyway, I'm hoping that you're able to see down here that these things all have a little slight mark in them, and I'm going to stand right now as my hand comes through here. Okay, as I bring it through this way, this is the feed direction. Okay, so a board would come through like this, obviously under we're on the top. Okay, this is the top, and so on these, there's a little indentation, and if you're standing on the infeed side of the planer, this would be at approximately 2 o'clock position. Okay, so this would be 12, 3, so at about the 2 o'clock, down here 4 o'clock, 8, we'll call this 7, maybe 10 or something, just for a rough reference. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick this in here, and you're going to loosen it, take it out, put a new one in, and they tell you how to do that in the instructions. There is a way to put them in. You need machine oil and stuff on it. Just follow the instructions in the manual. Very, very simple. And then you would screw this back down to a value, a torque value in there, and it says 45 to 55 inch-pounds. Okay. Now I'm going to warn you about inch-pounds. Make sure your torque wrench is not in foot-pounds. Okay. Most of the torque wrenches out there are tightening things in foot-pounds. Make sure you have a wrench for inch-pounds. Big difference. Okay. So 45 to 55 inch-pounds, or 3.75 to 4.6 foot-pounds. So these are not super duper tight here. Okay. So what you can do on these is, since they're 4-sided and all 4 sides are cutters, okay, so you're going to be able to get 4 cuts out of this. And these being the material that they are, carbide material, they last a pretty long time is what I'm told. Okay, I've only had high-speed steel knives now up until purchasing this helical head on my old DeWalt planer. But this being what they are, they should last quite a while. And when they do start wearing out, you'll take it off, you'll rotate it 1/4 turn, and you'll have a fresh blade. And then you would do that on all of the cutter heads on all of the rows at one time. Okay, now the only way you would do a 1 is like if you hit a nail or something, or you cause some kind of chip in here, then Powermatic says, okay, well, just take that one and rotate it 90 degrees. Now what you're going to need to do is somehow keep a record of which way you're turning them, okay? And what I'm going to do, the way I'm going to combat that is in the cover that goes over this, and I'm going to bring it back out just a little bit here. Okay, in the there's the cover that goes over this. Sorry, my remote control is not working today on my camera, so I have to manually do the telephoto and wide. But anyway, on the dust cover, or the cover that goes over the top of this, and then the dust cover here, I'm going to actually put some writing underneath that to keep track of my turns on this. And so you can either go clockwise or counterclockwise with them, just so you got a record of it. It doesn't matter. All right, but your index mark is your key. Now, Powermatic gives you a small box with this. It has 10 replacement blades, okay, which is nice. Obviously, when you got to replace all of these cutter blades, it's going to get pricey. These little cutter heads, I think they're about 15 bucks. I'm ballpark on that, okay? Yeah, I didn't look that price up. I think I'm just going off memory, so maybe they're $13 to $15, somewhere in that $15, give or take a couple dollars. I think there's 74 on this cutter head, if I remember right. So, you know, it's like $1,000, $1,100 to replace an entire thing of cutter heads here. So keep that in mind. You know, that could be an expense down the road. Now, they do give you 10 replacements here, and which is nice. And what I did is I just took this little thing, I glued 5-minute epoxy on the back here with 2 rare earth magnets, and I'm going to stick it over here in the side, out of the way from everything. And I'm actually putting it on the side with a little piece of paper between the magnets and the side of the steel over here of the bottom lower case unit to protect the paint from getting scratched by the rare earth magnets. So just an option there if you want to do it that way. But anyway, you don't want to lose those. That right there, you know, could be $150 sitting in that 10 cutter heads at 15 bucks a piece roughly. That's what you're looking at. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the height of these with my rotator, okay? And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring the camera over and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to spin this head, okay? I'll probably end up taking the belt cover off again, because I tell you the other day when I was cleaning it, I said I had 2 little cuts. I ended up with probably about a half a dozen. And so these things are so sharp, it's unbelievable. And it's good because I got some serious hickory waiting on these things. So yeah, good thing they're starting sharp. But anyway, I'm going to take this guard over, belt guard off, and I'm going to turn the cutter head with the belts instead of putting my hand up here, because my head's going to be down into here watching the rotator variations, should there be any. Now, Powermatic says this is adjusted before you get it. So you really should have to be adjustments. They just say, just check it. Okay, well, we can do that. So I'm going to bring the camera on over and we're going to get a shot of that now. All right, this is the part I'm going to continue on the cutter head. Okay, I'm going to come back and talk some more about this cutter head here. And in the instructions, it will have you check to see if your cutter head is high or low on one side. So using the rotator, I put it underneath there and found out that this side was 0.03 of an inch out from this side. And I really struggled with just, should I do that or should I not do it? It's 3/1000ths of an inch. So therefore, I decided that I was going to let it go. Then and I just run some boards through it and see how they look. At 3/1000ths, probably fine, you know. But anyway, nonetheless, I went ahead and did the next step, which has you check the feed rollers. And I found the feed rollers were out by about right at 1/100th of an inch. So I definitely wanted to, you know, kind of get that in a little bit more in line with what the instructions were calling. So I said, well, if you're going to move the feed rollers, then you really need to make sure this cutter head is right. So I'm going to tell you how I did the cutter head, and really think about whether you want to dive into this or not, because I've probably spent at least 2 hours I just stay with one side. You either adjust one side up or down. That's all you got to do. And I'm going to tilt this thing up and bring the camera underneath, and I'm going to show you why it's a tedious operation. Okay. Not real hard to do. You got to adjust it, and you're dealing with these jack screws. These jack screws are obviously very coarse thread, probably 8 threads per inch. So the very slightest of turn, and you're going several thousandths of an inch, you know, into hundredths of an inch pretty quick. And that's what I found. I thought, well, I'll just do a quarter turn first, and that was way too much. And then I found out I went down to just links in the chain. So I say that now, so when I get the camera underneath, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll come back and do that. Okay, we're in underneath the, as you can see, underneath the stand here, and I'm going to bring the camera on up so that you can take a look in here and hopefully get an eye on what we're looking at here. So bear with me for a minute. Definitely a single camera operation. All right, I think we got a good view. So this, if in the instruction, this is your chain tensioning device right here. So you're going to take this back one completely out, loosen this forward one so that you can move this thing and swing it and get it off the teeth, so you can adjust these rollers over here, okay, and over here. So what you would do is, what I would recommend is once you get it off, if you don't have very far to go, which I'm sure you won't, just move it one of the sprockets, one of the teeth at a time on your chain, and then tighten this back up. Put this bolt in, but just thread it in a little bit to keep it straight, and tighten this one back up, tension it up, and then you can go back in and go back up top and check out your measurement and see how it looks. All right, that will suffice. So I've been going underneath here and doing that, and it just takes a little while, tipping the machine back over, tipping it back and stuff. And so let me come out of here. All right, I've got the the cutter head all set, and I know I said earlier I was going to do that. We ended up doing it because what I found was, after when you get through the instructions part on the cutter head and checking it, you got to look at your feed rollers, your in feed and your out feed rollers, okay? And what I found was, in the manual they want at 0.032, okay? And mine were about 0.020 roughly, okay? So I was 1/100th of an inch out roughly, and so I'm like, well, I think that's enough. I probably need to address it. The problem is, when you address that, you could be getting it off from the cutter head here. So I thought, I'm gonna go ahead and adjust the cutter head, get it perfect, which it is now. It is absolutely spot on my rotator. And then I went into the in-feed and out-feed rollers. Okay, so in order for me to show you that, I'm gonna have to bring the camera down. It's real easy to do. And again, Powermatic provides the tools to do it, but they're nothing that most people wouldn't have in their shops anyway. These two here are spring tensionings, factory preset. I don't plan on bothering that until I run some boards and make sure everything's good. But I'm going to bring it in here and bring the camera off and see if we can get a good shot of this. These are going to be a little tough to show you, but I'm going to try my hardest. Probably this one on this side of the machine is going to be the easiest. So where I am right now is I am on the, you can see this is the control box, the part for the on and off switch and the plug and stuff. So I'm over here, and I'm hoping that you can see this right here, okay? This is a, kind of looks like the end of a bolt with a nut on it here, okay? And this is just a hex head bolt. You're gonna leave this tight, okay? What you're gonna do is you're gonna, Powermatic gives you the Allen wrench to put in here, and then the opening wrench, you're gonna loosen this, and then with either a gauge block and feeler gauges or my rotator, you're going to adjust this feed roller, okay? And you got to kind of watch, because this is a spiral, so make sure if you're using a rotator or your gauge block that you're on the bottommost portion of these spirals here, okay? And that's one of the things that I was kind of being really cognizant of when I was doing this, was to make sure that I did that, and I just moved it so that I was the 0.032 from the cutter head, and then the side to side measurement. And I'm spot on now. It's the same procedure to do it on the outfeed roller. So that's the way you adjust those. And it's really pretty simple to do. And hopefully you got a rotator or some kind of dial indicator or some kind of precision measuring device. The gauge block that Powermatic puts you with or shows you in their instructions, I'm sure it will work just fine. But you know, I'm finding more and more to get as precise as you can, get things to fit up a little better. You know, these more precise measuring devices are worth the money. Obviously a $99 dial indicator is not a super expensive one. They get far more expensive than that. But you know, for my purposes and most probably woodworking guys' purposes, that is pretty good. So to get that kind of accuracy on this. All right, so we're going to move on next, and oh, also in here is your chip detector. Deflector, I mean, chip deflector, and you can adjust the height of it, and that's adjusted up here with these guys right here on the top of the machine. Okay, so again, you can just move those as you need to. I'm sorry, may not be looking at the right part. But anyway, it's down in this adjustment right here is what they're showing with it, and I have not gone to that yet. I need to check my chip deflector, excuse me, and make sure that's the one I haven't done yet. But it's done, you know, all when you're doing these rollers, feed rollers and stuff. And then over here, I'll go ahead and put this on this segment here, is your knob for the speed control. Now I'm going to run at the 16 feet per minute. I like to feed my boards through a little bit slower through the planer. I've always done that. For hardwood, I think the slower you go, the better cut you're going to get. And for softer woods, you know, pines, basswood or something, which I rarely work with. I don't work with basswood really much at all. My wife and my father-in-law do a little bit of planing, or excuse me, carving, excuse me, carving. And so I might work a little bit for them, but almost never, because usually they're carving out and they don't need planed boards for that. So basswood never, but I do a lot of maple, cherry, walnut, hickory, so, and obviously those are all hardwoods, so a slower feed rate's probably going to yield you a better finish almost always, if not always. So just something to think about. But I'm going to run the slower setting on the feed per minute, so I'm going to leave that right where it's at. All right, next on our instructions here, we talk about the feed control, and I'm going to bring it in. We're almost down to there. We're going to talk about a little bit of the adjustment on it, and then we're so close to putting some wood through this thing. I'm getting really excited about putting some wood through this thing and seeing how it does, and letting you all know how it does. I know this video is getting really long, and I'm sorry about that, but in the end, I just didn't see, but I think there was one other guy that had one out and I watched before I bought this, and he did a nice job on it, but I thought, you know, why don't somebody just really put it out there? How to adjust this thing, everything. And, you know, see my failures and successes as I go through this, and you know, fortunately it's been mostly successes. And the Powermatic, like I say, I own some Grizzly stuff, I own some Jet stuff in my larger tools, and this is my first Powermatic, and I mean, the fit and the finish on it is really, it's probably, I'd say it's the best I've seen so far. The Jet stuff's pretty good. I mean, the Grizzly stuff's good too. There's no, the fit and the finishing maybe not being quite as good as, you know, like the Powermatic and stuff. And you know, I couldn't get the 5-row cutter heads with the Grizzly or the Jet, and that's why it was really the swing, along with Powermatic's 10% off sale. So again, I apologize for this video getting so long, but we are almost there, and I hope this has really helped you out a lot. But just a little more to come. Okay, got everything adjusted up as we did earlier in the video. Put it in its, what I think right now will be pretty much the place where I'm going to do most of my planing. And I can still roll it back this way and that way, but as of right now, I probably got a good 12 or more feet that way, and a good 8 or 10 or more feet that way. So I think that's going to probably take care of most, probably 99% of my planing needs. I got it locked down right now, so it won't move. You see I got my dust collection hooked up to it right now. It's of course gated, and so really what we're at right now, everything's adjusted. My final thoughts on the adjustments are, and again, guys, I know this video is getting long, but I really wanted to do a detailed, you know, kind of overview on this thing, on what I thought it was as I adjusted along the way and everything. And you know, so I hope that's beneficial, but I do apologize for the length of it. So in retrospect, you know, the worst thing I had out was the in-feed and out-feed rollers were 1/100 of an inch. Okay, so when I adjusted those, I decided I better adjust the cutter head, as I said earlier. And in the end, it wasn't, you know, they were pretty fine adjustments, but I'm glad I did it, because now when I feed a board through it, I'm pretty assured at this point I have a clean sheet of paper here. Okay, there's no guessing if the boards are coming out, you know, a little bit incorrectly. You know, what the problem is. I've got it all. So yes, I think it was worth doing. It was, you know, you're going to put a few hours into doing it. So if you're going to go down that road, you're just going to have to accept it, or you're going to live with, you know, what you think are factory settings when it was manufactured to be correct, and Powermatic says they do adjust it, and mine was close, a little bit out on the. I mean, I could have lived with 3/1000 of an inch on the cutter head, but you know, to be 1/100 of an inch off from the in feed out feed to the cutter head, I decided to go ahead and do that. So anyway, I've got a clean sheet of paper now, and I'm glad I do. So for whatever that's worth to you. So the big thing is now is, does it work? As you see, I got my circuit ran, and let's see what happens. All right. So, you know, it works. Obviously, you know, brand new machine, we don't expect anything less, but you never know. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, you know, bring the bed up, because when you crank this is what you're cranking is the bed down here. You're not cranking the cutter head. So I'm going to go get a couple boards, and we're going to run them through. We're going to see what kind of job we get on them, okay? All right, so what I chose was I had some walnut that was pretty easy to get to. What I got here is a piece of walnut that's been planed. This was planed by that first generation 12-inch DeWalt planer, and as you can see, there's no snipe in the board. Looks pretty good. It has not been sanded. This is just straight through the planer, but that's what this board should at least look like, and hopefully even a little bit smoother. Now, what I got here is this all came out of the same cut, okay? So when I bought this pile of walnut, it all came out of the same thing, so it's all been dried the same and things like that, okay? This is obviously a piece that has not been planed, and that's what we're going to start with. Right now, we'll put this on there, and okay, see what we got. Oops, sorry, we're in metric. Let's get it back to standard. We're at point okay, so this board also, I didn't realize it has a little bit of warp in it down here. You can see down there. It's probably not the best choice, but we're going to run through there right now. You see, I mic'd it in a few places. It's running from 0.85 to about 0.906. All right, so it's about a 7/8 inch board, roughly speaking. And we're going to just plane it down. And now the problem with this is it's not that wide. It's probably 5 inches wide. So if it's a little thicker on one side and the other, I know my cutter head would be way out. I don't expect it to be any out because it's just such a, it'd be nice if I had about a 14-inch board to run through it, but unfortunately I don't right at this moment. So let's run it through there and see how she does. Before I do that, if you're all like me, it's so nice and clean now, you hate to do this. I'm going to turn on my dust collection. Yes, my dust collection is outside my building, so. Okay, on that one, I really didn't get a cut, so we'll bring her down just a little bit more. You already see it's starting to come up. And let me tell you, that is glass smooth right there. That is going to be minimal sanding. Let's take another round. All right, this thing is looking like glass. There's not one bit of snipe in it at this point. The other thing is, look how quiet this thing is. My DeWalt planer was so loud. All right, I got just a shade of snipe right there. I mean, I got to put it in the light to even see it. This board's looking pretty good. Still got a few rough spots. A little bit of snipe right there. Looking pretty good right now. I'm gonna blow it one more time through there. All right, got a little bit of snipe right there on each end. All right, maybe I don't have it adjusted right, but where it's hitting it here, man, it is just glass smooth. Glass smooth. Don't flip it over this time. All right, first pass. Second pass. Might be a shade. Just a real slight jump right there. This one's looking pretty good. All right. I'm not seeing any snipe on that pass. I'm sorry. It was on this side. Looking pretty good there. Let's give it another pass. We'll get the all right. Right now, I can put it in I can get the light off of it. There's zero snipe. Yeah, zero snipe on that one, and on this side, I got just a little bit down at this one end. It's really looking good. And in here, out here in the main portion, excuse me, it is just super smooth. I still got a little rough there. I probably need to go just a little bit deeper there. That is not a planer issue right there. That is an issue of the board is a little thin right there, and it would need another pass to catch it, a pass or two to catch that. Over here, man, it's looking great. Really looking great. Minimal sanding, and we'd have this really looking just perfect. Okay, and so you know the test is it did a really good job. You know, that's the first board ran through it, and to compare that to the one that was ran through there, I can feel on this one, just a little bit of roughness, especially this way and that way. You go on this one, and it's smooth, and that's what I was hoping for. That's why I wanted to put a fair amount of money into a really good planer this time, because I don't have a drum sander. And I need boards to come out pretty close to finish grade with some light sanding, and then they're ready for the finish process. So anyway, again, this is the in closing. I'm sorry for the length of the video, but I think it's very detailed. I hope it helps you. I found out, I did a little bit more, it's cling spores. I did post the link on there, or in the video early on, where I actually got it. Was cling spores out of North Carolina, a great place to deal with. This is my first Powermatic piece. It's lived up to its advertisements at this point, at this early point of the game. We're starting off good. And I'm glad to see that it's quiet. The dust collection, I do have a little bit of dust. Bring in the camera right down here and show you what I got there. Okay, there's a little bit of dust out here. Okay, but for the most part, it was caught. And that was another concern of mine, because those of you who plane know that these are monster dust and shaving chip producers. And I don't know if you can see it, but it was catching obviously the mass amount of. If I can plane a board inside and get no more than that to clean up, I'm pretty happy. Again, hey, feel free to comment. It's all about all of us learning. And hopefully spending our money more wisely. If you're thinking about one of these, I'm happy with it. They are a little more expensive than some of the other brands out there, and without actually having another brand right here to run it daily against, I don't want to comment too much on that, or I don't really just say anything about it. Comparing it to my DeWalt, little tabletop DeWalt I had, obviously everybody in the world would agree that this is a major step up, and it is. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be putting out other videos on some equipment I'm buying. You can look for if you want to, hopefully they'll help you. This is probably, I won't go near this detailed on some other ones, but since there was only one other video out there that I could find on YouTube in regard to this, I felt the need to put this much time and energy into this. So thanks, take care.